Okay, so buenos días. ¿Cómo estás? Bien, good. Okay, so again, just a reminder, today is the last lecture, so we try to finish all the chapter today. So we only have one chapter left, which is chapter 4. Well, I think so, yeah, bioconservation, right? But before that, we still have to finish the chapter 3A, which is the biodiversity of animals. Okay, now just a review a little bit before we go to the last type of animals, which is the most considered as the most modern type of evolution, animals based on the evolution. Okay, so let's see again. Okay. This one is harder. Okay, now animals. What do you call the animal? All of them?
Eukaryote?
Yeah, no, I mean the special name for all animal is called metazoa. Metazoa, right? So metazoa, which is animal. Yeah, they are, of course, they are eukarya because their cell, like us, having the nucleus or real nucleus. Okay, it's divided into two. The most primitive one is the one that do not have tissue. What do you call that? No, that's the one that don't have a cavity. The one that don't have tissue called the parazoa. Okay, parazoa. Okay, and it's only one, actually, one group. Okay, which is the sponge. Sponge. Okay, the phylum is actually called the Porifera, but Porifera, I mean, it has a lot of pores, therefore it's making sponges structure. Now, the real one, the real animal, the one that have tissue is called, remember, real mean you, or true mean you. So, you metazoa. This is the real animal. It means that it has tissue. The cell now organized into tissue. Okay, now the eumetazoa then divided into two main types. Yeah, the first one is acelomate. Before going to acelomate, they divided based on the symmetry first. Okay, the one that many symmetry is called radiata. Okay, it's a radial symmetry. And the one that have only one symmetry, left and right, is called the bilateria. Two symmetry, or it can be divided only one line to create equal part. Okay, get it? Now, the radiata, it has two. Okay. The first one is called, remember, evolution is coming from water, right? So the top over here, the one that is most primitive will be in water, aquatic, mostly marine animal, right? Radiata, Cnidaria, okay, and Stenophora. Okay, this is the animal. Example, okay? Example of this, I will not divide it again into classes or order, just example of the animal. So you know which animal considered as Cnidaria and Stenophora. So Cnidaria, example is jellyfish, right? So you have jellyfish, okay? And then you have the house for Dory, what was it? Nemo, yeah. The house of Nemo. What is that? Sea anemones. Sea anemones. They are Cnidaria. Sea anemones. Okay, so again, if you do snorkeling, you're going to see a lot of these sea anemones. They have different color. And then, including here also hydra, okay, also box jelly, okay. And again, for these groups, they have two stages, which is the sessile stage is called polyps, okay, they stay on the bottom of the sea, and the swimming stage is called medusa, okay. The same thing with this one. This is also jelly, but it is called the comb jelly, which is actually really beautiful. It's like a really kind of light coloring inside the ocean. Okay, so that's the radiata. Bilateria then divided into the one that have what you call it, cavity, and the one that do not have cavity. Right? The one that do not have cavity, of course, is gonna be more primitive. It's called the acelomate. Okay, and example is only one organism. It's called the Asula. Again, this is also aquatic organism. Okay, it's very small actually. And then for the second group will be, okay, coming from this coelomate, the one that has the body cavity, just like us. Okay, we have the abdominal cavity, right? But they're going to have different cavity, but they do have body cavity. Okay, now, the coelomate then divided into two types. Okay, if their mouth, okay, is coming from the gastrula, what do you call that group? Protostome. Okay, protostome. Protostome. And if the anus actually coming from the gastrula, they are called the deuterostome. Okay. Okay, this is this is talking about biodiversity. So animal is very diverse. This is just, that's division or classification or grouping. Now for the protostome, they are actually divided by two, but I will not go there. Just now directly to their examples. So the most primitive of protostome is a group of animals that part of the zooplanktons. What do you call that? Rotifera. Okay, they are very small. They are microscopic animal. And then there is Ectoprocta. This is also aquatic animal. Okay, they just look like actually the sessile of the Cnidaria, look like a plant underwater, but it's small, very, very small. And then there is a Brachiopoda, which is look like a bivalve shell, but the shell are equal actually. Okay, equal. Okay, and then after that there is Platyhelminthes. Okay, helmin mean worm. So flat is flat. So this is flat worm. There are three examples that I gave it to you last time. The free living one is called the planaria. It is also aquatic worm. And then the one that mostly parasite, okay, in the liver is called the liver fluke. If it is in the digestive system, it's called the tapeworm. That's a Platyhelminthes. And then from there, there is another group of animal that's protostome, which has the rings structure, segment. Okay, their body actually consists of rings. What you call that? Annelida. I give you two examples. If it is in the soil, it's called earthworm. If it is in the ocean, it's called a marine worms. So they have a which is Oligocyta and Polycyta for this group. And then after that, there is a group of animals that has a very soft body, and most of them will create shell from their body. What do you call that group that have soft body?
Mollusca.
Mollusca. Good job. Mollusca. Okay. And in this group, example, of course, snail, sludge. What else? The one that have 8 legs become big in the movie.
Spider?
No, octopus. Yeah, spider have 8 legs. Octopus, right? The one that I like it, you know, there's a seafood that can squid, actually liquid, black liquid. So the squid, that's called it squid because it's squid. Nautilus, remember that? That's included in this mollusca. Okay, and then after that, there is a group called Nematoda. Nematoda, many of them parasite in animals. It's called the roundworms. Okay, so dogs have many of them. Okay? If you have dog, then sometimes it might have parasite on it. That's a roundworm. Human also have that parasite in it. Some in tropical country, they also have, you know, problem with nematode. Usually, the kid that have this nematode, their skin, they're very skinny, but their belly is big because what? Filled with that roundworm. Okay, so usually if you put medicine, this liquid medicine into him, and then in the morning you actually can take one by one. Yeah, I have that experience. I will not tell you who has that and then who actually put that. Yeah, there is another one. It's also roundworm, but very small. It's called the pinworm, and if it is in your digestive system, your anus will be very, very itchy. They're gonna. That's actually kid, you know, they have it. They, you know, it's very, very itchy. They scratch it, and what happened? Kids sometimes forget. They put their finger on their mouth. It's going back to him again. Okay, maybe we don't have this problem in temperate zone, but in tropical country, they do have. Okay, pinworm, very, really small, white, okay, and really, really itchy. Okay, especially in the last hole, the anus. Okay, now the last one over here. This is the most abundant species, which is in the group called Arthropoda. Arthropoda. What does arthropoda mean? Segmented legs. Segmented leg. We have segment. See, segment is right, but we are not arthropod. So it has segment. Okay? Their leg has segment. Therefore, they have several group. One of them is called hexapoda. What does hexa mean? 6. So they have 6 legs. Example is a lot. You know, butterfly, housefly, bugs. You know, the grasshopper, bees. Well, many of them. Hexapoda. Another example is called the myriapoda. It has 2 groups. One is the one that have only pair of legs on their segment. Is called centipede, and the other one, it has 2 legs on their segment body. It's called the millipede. Okay, and you saw the millipede last time during our walk in the, I think in Monteverde. And then there is also group is called the crustacea. Okay, crustacea, which is including the shrimp. What else? Lobster. What the animal that barnacles? Barnacles actually include in this crustacea. And then another group is called Selicerata. Okay, sometimes in the old book it's called the Arachnoida. This is a group of spiders. Spiders. The bed bugs, the tick. It's in group of this. Okay, so the tick is not insect, it's not hexapoda, but they are Selicerata or Arachnoida. The same group with the spider. Okay, like bed bugs, the tick that causing the disease. Okay, I think that's all. So that's group of protostome. Got it? Now the last group, which is we're gonna discuss today, which is deuterosome. This is anus, okay, coming from the gastrula, and there are two groups for the deuterostome. I'm gonna erase all of this and put a new, bigger one. Okay, deuterostome, divided into two groups. Okay, the most primitive one is called the Echinodermata. Echinodermata. Echino means spiny. Derm means skin. So their skin are spine. It has like a spine structure. Okay. In this group, I just give you the example of animals on it. Was one, of course, Patrick. Who is Patrick? The sea star. Again, I was a little bit sorry when we went to the Antonio. I thought the Antonio is, Antonio, what's it called? Park is a kind of, the ocean, the beach that has the intertidal zone, so you can see a lot of Patrick over there, but actually it's a sandy, sandy beach. You don't really see that Patrick and his friend. Okay, so Patrick over here, sea star. Okay. There is another one that also have 5, but the leg is, okay, this is spiny. This is the leg, also kind of spiny. You can hold it. It is not dangerous. Sea star. This one is called the Bristol star. Yeah, you can hold it. It's, you can feel it. Yeah. Sometimes this one is really easy to break. So sometimes their leg is gone, but they can grow it again. Okay, so Bristol star. It's called the Bristol star. Okay, Bristol stars. Then the one that look like this with a lot of spine. But again, the spine is not that actually, unless if you step on it, without, without sandal or without shoes, you might get hurt. But it's not that, actually not that really sharp. You can hold it. What do you call this?
Sea urchin.
Sea urchin. Actually, I used to eat this sea urchin. In the restaurant, some restaurant, they also carry the sea urchin.
Do sea urchins have venom?
No, don't worry. They are okay. They are okay. Maybe this is their protection over here. The fish will not eat that, but they don't really have venom or poison. They are edible. You can eat them. Sea urchin. Sea urchin. There is also the one that look like this. Look like a lily. Therefore, it's called a sea lily. Sea lily. Yeah. Sea lily. Sea lily. And the last one is the one that look like cucumber. Really, like cucumber. What do you call it? Sea cucumber. And then you can eat this. Restaurant can carry this sea cucumber. They said the taste crunchy if you fried it, or you can, use a vegetable for it. It's delicious actually. It's delicious. Yeah. So sea cucumber. Sea cucumber. Okay, many restaurant, if you go to the Asian restaurant, I don't know whether they carry it here or not, but in Asian country, China, for example, they have, Indonesia, they have this sea cucumber. They even have the shark fin. but expensive. You know the dorsal fin. They say I never eat it, but they say it's delicious. Soup, right? Making a soup. Hey, this is the Echinodermata. The last group over here, which is our group. What is our group? Chordata. Okay, Chordata. It means that this group has chorda dorsalis. It has a rod shape on the back that become vertebrae for some group or stay at a chorda dorsalis for other groups. So this actually have three groups, the chordata. Okay, the first one is called the Urochordata. But yeah, the last group I'm gonna show you. Okay, over here. So Urochordata, Uro mean actually tail, okay? And then the Cephalochordata, Cephalo mean head. Okay, so Urochordata, Cephalochordata. Again, they are aquatic organism. Urochordata, Urochordata. Okay, there's one example for this one. It's called the squirt, because it actually can squirt water from it. Okay, the Urochordata. Cephalochordata, Cephalochordata. The example is lancet. It's called lancet. It look like a knife. The shape is look like a knife. Very, very small. If you put on your hand, it's really small. Sometimes it's kind of a transparent. Look like fish. Yeah, this is actually, become fish later. And the last one, of course, our group. We have vertebrae. What you call us? Vertebrata. So vertebrata. So this vertebrata over here is actually only 3% of all the animals. It means that 97% of animal is actually what? It's called the invertebrate. Okay, invertebrate. Okay, so starting from the sponge until this lancet or lancelet, the Cephalochordata, they're all invertebrate. Vertebrate is only one group in Chordata. Okay, so I'm gonna show you the picture. Oh, this should be, sorry. Here, this is the squid. You can squid the water from it. And this is the lancelet, which is really small, kind of fish, but it's not really fish. Okay? And then, of course, the last one, the vertebrate. Now, vertebrate, so there are maybe a lot of, or some question coming from this vertebrate in the final exam, because this is actually considered as the most important group. This is the one that most people, learn or study, because they are actually close relative to us, and many of them is beneficial for us. Okay, so vertebrate, it has 5 classes. It has 5 classes. Of course, the most primitive one is the one that still live mostly in water, aquatic animal. What do you call them?
Fish.
Fish. It's called fishes. Fishes or fish. So if you born in March to April, that's your, in astronomy, what do you call it? Your
Zodiac sign.
Zodiac. I'm looking for that. Zodiac. Okay. It's a fishes, which is fish. Okay. And then what is the second one? Now it is start to go on land, but still part of their cycle is in water. What you call that? So they have two life. They called amphi. Amphi means two. Okay, and bio mean two. Mean life. So it has two life, two stages of life. When they are larvae, they actually breathe with gills. But when they are adult, they actually breathe with lungs and skin. They still need skin to breathe. The lung is not efficient for them. Right? And then come to the one that mostly in or on land, which is what?
Reptilia.
Reptilia. Okay, reptiles. Okay. And then from the reptile, it's evolved into one able to fly is called aves or bird, and one that still on the land, but now they have 4 legs, they have 2 legs, they have so many variety. It's called mammals. Okay, so both bird and mammal is actually evolved from reptile. Just for your information. Okay. Now, the amphibian evolved from fish. Reptile evolved from amphibian. Bird, mammal evolved from reptile. That's according to the evolution. Now, the fish, they are divided into 2 main types. The first one is the fish that do not have jaw. It's called the agenata. Okay, agenata. Genata means jaw, a means no, so no jaw. Example is lamprey. It look like fish, but it's just sucking. They don't really have ability to crunch their food. They're just sucking the food. And then hagfish. There is a hagfish. It's called the hagfish. Also, they are, just sucking the food. No jaw. Second one is the one that have the adaptation ability to crunch their food, which is genata or genatosoma or genatostome. It means that it has jaw. The one that has jaw is divided into 2 types. Okay, first one is called the bone is not really bone, but it is actually cartilage. What you call it? Chondrichthyes. Chondro means cartilage. So I'm gonna write it here. Chondrichthyes. Ichthyes means fish. If you take a science, it's called the ichthyology. Ichthyology, you're actually learning about fish. So chondrichthyes is the fish that has cartilage, no bone. Of course, the second one is gonna be bony fish. Bony is osteon. Osteon means bony, so it's gonna be osteichthyes. Osteichthyes. This is the bony fish. Example of chondrichthyes, there are 2 main one, which is the prehistoric fish that has been alive for million years. Anybody knows? What is that?
Shark.
Shark is prehistoric. The second one is look like kite. What is that?
Stingray. Stingray.
Stingray. Yeah, stingray. That's also chondrichthyes. Okay. Osteichthyes. Of course, this is the most dominant type of fish. Okay. Chondrichthyes, osteichthyes. And this osteichthyes divided into 2, Actinopterygii and Sarcopterygii. Now, Actinopterygii means ray fin fish. And then the Sarco means pocket. Like a sack. Sarco. Pterygii, they have lobe type of fin. Now, if you see the difference, it's actually mostly located in the pectoral fin. The lobe fin fish, the Sarcopterygii, actually, it has a very strong bone on the pectoral fin. Some of them actually have the ability to crawl to the mud. Okay, therefore it is considered as the ancestor, the mud skipper, the ancestor for the what? For amphibian, because this is going to be going up to the land. Okay, the Sarcopterygiae. Okay, that's two types. Okay, and this is the fossil of the Sarcopterygiae called the Tiktaalik fish. This is considered as the common ancestor for land animal. Okay, especially evolved to amphibian. Okay, that's for the fish. Amphibian, it has three groups. Okay, amphibian has three groups. The first one is called the Urodela. It has tail. What is the example of Urodela? Salamander. Salamander is an amphibian. Salamander. There are many different colors. Kentucky have a lot of salamander actually. I have a friend that do research in salamanders. He always bring that in the conference every year. We have a CAS, Kentucky Academy of Science. His students, many of them always, do that sample from different part of Kentucky, showing the different type of salamander. And then the second one is Urodela. Anura. Anura. This is the one that do not have tail when they are adult, but when they are larvae, they have tail. What is that? Frog and toad. Frog and toad. And the last one is the one that do not have legs. It's called the apoda. Okay. So this is the picture of apoda, anura, and urodela. Okay. So this is amphibian. Now, what is after amphibian? Gonna be the reptile. Okay. So reptile. There are four groups of reptile. The first one is Crocodilia. And the name is telling you this is crocodile, alligator, caiman that we saw last time on the river. And then the second ones will be called the Spinodonta. This is actually only have one species left, and both of them live in Australia. Okay, Tautura is called the Tautura. It looks like lizard, but it's different character, different structure. Okay, and then the next one will be called it has a lot of scale, therefore it's called the Squamata. Squama means scale. Okay, and of course in this group consists of lizard and snakes. Okay, snake is actually lizard that lost the legs. The legs is become vestigial or even lost. Okay, they don't need their legs. Okay, that's their adaptation. And the last one will be the Testudine or Testudinia, which is consists of, if it is mostly in water, is called the turtles, but sometimes many of them live on land, is called tortoise. You see that different characters, right? Tortoise and turtle. Okay, so that's the reptilian. What is the next group? Will be birds. Remember, bird is evolved from Archaeopteryx. Archaeopteryx is a type of reptile that has bird character. That's a links between reptile and bird. So bird has special, of course, adaptation. They have a very light bone, so therefore they can fly. And there over here the breast is not like us, they don't have breastbone. What? So you see the breastbone is actually become just one. It's called the keel. So that's their adaptation for flying. They have bill, they have feather instead of hair or scale. So feather is actually the evolution of scale. scale become feather in the bird. And the last one, human. I'm sorry. Last one is mammals. Now the scale and feather is actually modified into hair. So it's called hair. Okay. We don't have feather, right? We have hair. So mammals have hair. That's the characteristic of mammals. And mammal, it has many groups. Okay, but there are three main ones. There are mammals that still actually lay egg, like in Phineas and Ferb movie. What is his name? Perry the platypus. Okay, it is actually mammal, but they lay egg, just like bird. It's have bill, okay, lay egg, but they don't have feather. They have hair. That's the characteristic of mammal. It has hair, not feather, but it has bill. See that one? So that's what you call it? Monotremata. Okay, monotremata. That's the first group. Sometimes it's called the Protothuria. And then the second group, this is between, which is in the middle. It don't lay egg. It actually give birth of baby, but the baby is not developed yet. Baby is kind of immature outside the mom. Therefore, the mom has to have pocket in order to make the baby growing outside the mommy body. What you call that pocket? Belly pocket. Example? Kangaroo. So they have the pocket to carry belly sack, which is to carry the baby. Why? Because the baby get born, but it's not mature yet. They still need mom. Now the last one, of course, the one that already mature when the baby born, and it has a real placenta. This is the, what you call them? The placenta animal, okay, or eutheria. Okay, so Protothuria, and then this is the, okay, Metatheria and Eutheria. Okay, so Protothuria is monotremata. The Metatheria is also known as marsupials. Okay, and then Eutheria is also known as a placenta animal, the one that have placenta. Okay, and then I think from there, from mammals, then you have monkey, apes, and so there are many biodiversity. And then you have so many examples that you see during our visit in this place. Okay, I think I will not talk one by one, but that's the biodiversity of the animals, from very primitive, the spawns, until very sophisticated or modern, which is the ape or hominid, which is going to be human. Okay, do you have questions for this? No? Okay, so we have about 20 minutes for the last chapter. Okay, which is chapter 4, and this is bioconservation. Now, for the bioconservation, there are actually, mostly there are 3 actions, but actually 4, 4 action in the book is mentioned 3 action, but in my opinion, there should be 1 more action over here for the conservation. What is the 4 action that mostly in conservation? Of course, establishment of protected areas. That's the first actions on conservation. To establish the area that protect the natural ecosystem. Maybe in situ, maybe ex situ. Okay, maybe on the real natural system, or maybe outside their natural habitat. Okay, but establishment, that's number 1. Second one, implementations of sustainable management system. That's the second action in conservation. And when we visited the chicken farm, the cow farm, the butterfly farm, what? The coffee farm. What did they tell you mostly? We use sustainable management, right? So they use the compost instead of using fertilizer, right? They're using the what we call a multiculture instead of monoculture. Like in coffee farm, you have coffee plant, and above it you have other plants. You know, that's actually part of also sustainable management system. And the last one, according to this, which is the restoration. Restoration means when the natural environment or habitat or condition is degraded or being polluted, then we should restore that area. Like for example, in the forest, if the plants is gone, then what happens? Sometimes people put a new plants on it. Restoration, reforestation, sometimes we call it also. That's an example. The last one that is not mentioned over here, that I believe it should be there, which is education. Because education is also part of the conservation. Include in the education is like research, training, that should be part of the conservation action too. Okay? Now, there are two types of conservation. If it is in the natural habitat, it is called a, Toby? In situ. Example, of course, we visited them a lot in this area. What? Manuel Antenna National Park, and then Monteverde. Even though this is private conservation area, it is in the natural habitat. Quetzal Forest, right? When we visited the Quetzal area, this is part of the in situ. Okay, and then the second one will be what? Outside their natural habitat, ex situ. The most famous example is zoo. Zoo is an ex situ conservation, because in the zoo, they actually breed the animal too, and they conserve the animal, but outside their natural habitat. And the last one for the ex situ is like a seed banks. Many nations actually have a lot of seed banks in order to preserve their seed, especially the plants that is important for maybe farms or maybe for medicals. That's ex situ conservation. I think this is just example of, again, the protected area, national park, wildlife sanctuary, reserve, and then sustainable management, preventing over harvesting, sustainable forestry, reducing pollution. This is kind of the activity part of this management. Restoration ecology, habitat restorations, and then species reintroduction. Sometimes in some place the local species is gone, people put it back. Fish, for example, they put it new, but it should be local fish, not fish that coming from different countries become invasive species later, which is not good. And then restoring water quality, for example. That's the action in restoration. And then again, as I mentioned, there is another action that should be done, which is including here is like education, training, introduce the natural ecosystem or the benefit of natural ecosystem to the kids, elementary school, preschool maybe, about the good things of this natural ecosystem. So it's kind of another example. Research, observations, and what we do over here is part of the conservation actually. We try to teach you all here about the good things about natural environment and then keep them good. Don't pollute it, don't destroy it, and etc. And this is just the same like the biodiversity. Again, animals are number one, and then plants, and etc. This is number of species based on the study. And this is just showing us the Hotspots mean the area that has a lot of species diversity. And as I show here, Indonesia is one of them, Brazil's, Costa Rica, Caribbean country, they are including in the hotspots place or area. This is just some examples of climate change that change the biodiversity. In this research, the research is showing us that the grizzly bears, mostly, in the historic area, mostly in the kind of southern part of United States, but now it's actually moving to the north, even kind of combined with the polar bear habitats. Why? Because it's getting warmer on the north part of Canada and United States. So they actually, their home range, they're moving to the north because the north is not that cold as before. So grizzly bear sometimes now going or compete with the polar bear habitats. This is just example of the effects of the global warming or climate change. This is just example of the benefits of biodiversity to us, to human. Many plants produce the alkaloids, secondary metabolite that actually used for medicine. Example, we mentioned before opium, even caffeine, we use that for us. Many of them is used for medicine. Also, animals' venom can be used also as a medicine. And then for agriculture, of course, there are many genes that coming from the wild type is, can be used to make our farm plants better because they have the ability to resist against dry, for example, or against some disease. So that's some example of benefit. Now, this is just spatial terminology in conservation. Species that is very important, that if we remove this species from their habitat, it will change the ecosystem. This is called the keystone species. Many big plants, maybe, they are considered as a keystone species because they harbor many small animals to live. If you remove them, then of course it will change the ecosystem, the keystone species. The second one, according to this, which one first, umbrella or?
Indicator.
Oh, indicator species. Okay, according to this, indicator species. What is this? This is the species that can tell us whether the environment is good or bad. Give the indications of the conditions of the environment or habitat. So, for example, when visited the area, we see a lot of lichens, right? So lichen is actually a good indicator for air good condition. If less lichen or no lichen, mostly is telling us is bad air, polluted air. Some insects, larvae insect that live in water, they are good indication for whether the water is polluted or unpolluted. So when I undergrad also, I did this experiment or observation, research with, indicator species using the larvae of insects in the river. So I comparing between the river that don't have the industry and then after the industry and in the industry part. So basically three area, before, in, and then after what happened. Sometime in the after over here, they have the recovery too. So some animal is growing back. Some larvae is showing back. But in the second area, maybe in the polluted area, you don't see a lot of animals because they just die because of pollution. The next one is called the umbrella species. What does umbrella mean?
Protected.
Protected is actually umbrella mean wide. So it has a wide range of area that they needed in order to live. Without this wide range or home range, they will not be able to live. Many of this is, of course, the big mammals like elephants, what else? Rhino. They need wide range home range. So the protected area for them has to be huge. Not only 1 kilometer, 1 kilometer. No, that's not enough for them. This is what we call the umbrella species. And the last one is called what?
Flagship.
Flagship, like panda, for example. So people kind of like them, it's cute, okay? It usually become what we call the flagship species. So many organizations like WWF, World Wide Fund for Protection, they actually using the picture of panda as their, indication of, caring this animal. What is another one that flagship?
Sea turtle.
Sea turtle, people like, sea turtle, koala, right? Maybe over here it's quetzals. Yeah, it's a quetzal. Wow, so okay. Okay, so that's the flagship species. Now, what is actually the main things that threatens the biodiversity is actually, remember biodiversity is about species. What species number? It means that if the species extinct, then that will be the main condition of the threatens of biodiversity, which is extinction or species extinction. It can be caused by natural or maybe by human action. It's called the anthropogenic action. We will not talk about the natural cause because that's a natural, right? We cannot really able to protect them from natural extinction, like for example, volcano eruptions. But we can work with the other one, which is the anthropogenic cause, which is caused by human action. It can be abbreviated into HIPPO. HIPPO, there are 5 human action that's considered as a dangers or threatens the species extinction or biodiversity. What does the H stand for? Habitat loss or habitat destruction. This is number 1 everywhere. So the forest is changed into city, into factory, into road, many places. That's number 1. Okay, anthropogenic cause of species extinction. What is number 2? Invasive species. With this modern time, everybody can go from one place to another, but sometimes they carry things that is actually not supposed to be carried into one place, and then it's become invasive. They have a better adaptation with the local species. They're actually killing the local species. What is the next one? Pollution. This is another one that's causing extinction or loss of biodiversity. What is after that? Population of human growth. So human growing fast, it's need things, so it can causing this extinction. And what's the last one?
Overharvesting.
Overharvesting, like overgrazing, overhunting, overfishing. That's include in this threat. And then there are so many action that is done. Okay, in the United States, for example, they have what we call the ESA, Endangered Species Act, and it's classified the species into 3 groups. The first one, when they are very kind of rare in their environment, it's cannot maybe going to be gone sometime, but it's not gone yet. Still some, what is called the vulnerable species. And then after that, if it is not protected, it might become threatened. Right? Threatened is the second level. And then if it is not protected, it might be endangered. So endangered is the highest condition. And then again, if it is not protected, it's become extinct. That's the last one, extinction, which is not mentioned over this because extinction means it's already gone. So there is no need to to classify that animal. This is just showing us number 1 threatened species is actually amphibian. Okay, amphibian, a lot. that has been endangered. Second is mammals, and then bird, reptile, etc. Of course, prokaryote is gonna be not really threatened. They are easily to adapt. Okay, so amphibian, mammal, bird, reptile. Okay. This is just example of protections that this has been done locally or nationally or even internationally. So every nation now actually have they don't really force actually, but they have this action in order, kind of some people, if you do good action, then you'll be proud, right? So because people say, yeah, you good man. The same thing with the nation actually, there is no force for them to protect their place because they're their own place. But if they protect it, what happened? They consider as a good nation, a nation that protect the area. Even some nation maybe can help them, international organization can help them to do that. But there is some nation that don't care. There are some nations that don't care about protecting their place. Maybe you have, some people in some area, they just over hunting, they just cut the what's it called, the rhino horn, okay, and etc. Or the tusk of the, that's the. This is just showing us the size of place. Again, actually really important. But again, some nation maybe have a big natural park. Some nation, they don't really have that ability to conserve their area. This is the ideal natural park. They should have what we call the core area, which is in this core area, nobody can enter, maybe except maybe for research. And then after that, there's a buffer zone. Over here, the nation can have ecotourism, just like in the Antonio, what you call it, Manuel Antonio Park, yeah. Tourists can go there. That's actually in the buffer zone. We cannot enter into the core zone, the core area. Sometimes the guides say, don't go there because there is a snake, right? Which is kind of thing that make people don't want to go. But actually, this is a core area. You cannot really enter to the core area except maybe for research. And then buffer zone. And there are some area, it's called the multiple use area. It can be used by people, for example, for agriculture and etc. So this is the 3 zones that's usually present in the conservation area, including the national park. And this is the last one that I mentioned. Education is really important, including educate our kids, our young, about the importance of good ecosystem. Okay, I think we're done. We finished with all the lecture. Okay, I hope it helped you to understand especially for this tropical biodiversity and also the actions for conservation and the activities that we have done so far, visiting the national park, visiting the conservation area, visiting the sustainable farm. It helped you also to understand about the importance of this natural ecosystem. And tomorrow we will have the review, and then Wednesday you will have the final exam. And then the last one is your presentation. And I need your assignment. Thank you.